Good afternoon. Welcome to School Grange. So summer's starting to wind down. Kids are going to be going back to school soon. So we're definitely thinking about all the families who'll be sending children to school, thinking about the school administrators and teachers. Brian, I know you had several months off now, so we're thinking about you guys in the weeks ahead. Now I'd like to ask Leon Childs to lead us in our invocation, and after that, we join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, bow our heads. Oh, Heavenly Father, thank you once again for showing grace and mercy to bow our heads off the pillow this morning. That's an unsolved blessing that sometimes take for advantage. It means a lot. You got to allow us to get out and go out and make a mission. You got to talk to people and do your mind work to take care of them. Lord, I pray to you today that each and every last member in this room will let the words that come out of their mouth led by the actions that they feel about their fellow people, and that they will do the things that are pleasing to you, God. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Maybe see it. I'd like to ask Kelsey to introduce our guest.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce our guests. Stand when your name is called and remain standing until all names have been introduced. Our first guest is Linda Robertson, guest of Jaja Hurd. Next, we have Darren and Lisa Nunn, guests from the Muskogee Rotary Club. Next, there is David Skinner with Batson Cook, guest of Bill Honeycutt. Next is Dr. Chris Price, guest of Molly Oldham and Shirley Pennybaker. Then there is Kim Myers with Get True Reading, guest of Connie Hensler. And lastly is Chef Tara with Tara Personal Chef Services, guest of Susan Ferguson. Welcome.
Really glad to have you all with us. Hope you'll consider coming back anytime. And if you're interested in joining the club, please do let us know. We'd love to have you all consider that. So I want to mention, we have a couple of birthdays and anniversaries today. I want to bring to your attention. First of all, Sandy Simmons' birthday was July 31st. Brandon Ely was August 1st. Don't have any, it must have been a terrible time to get married. No wedding anniversaries. It's too hot. So, but we do have a couple of the member anniversaries. First is Molly Fulgham at 5 years, which jumped in and really got busy for a short amount of time. And then Bill Honeycutt is 7 years. Bill, you were a member before, weren't you? Okay, I thought that. Okay, long time member. We have a handful of club announcements I want to bring to your attention. First of all, August is membership and new club development month for Rotary International. So all year long, but especially this month, I would encourage you all to think about people we could ask to come as a guest or potentially join the club. Certainly, we'd love to have you invited to join a meeting, but if you just want help in recruitment, reach out to Molly, reach out to me. We'll be glad to talk to them with this. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you think about it, with more LaGrange Rotarians, we can do more good in the community and do more good in the world. So love to get back, start working toward those pre-pandemic levels. Board meeting, don't have that for a couple of weeks. That's August 16th, but just keep that in mind. I want to remind everybody about our 5K on September 23rd. Scott has about 10 volunteers and needs about 30. So if you would, just go ahead and commit. It's 1 day of work, and it's going to hopefully be our fundraiser moving forward. So he can direct you to that. Then our 100-year gala, I mentioned this, but I want to give you all a heads up, particularly for those companies that have been part of Rotary for a long time, who have members in the past. You should be getting a message about a potential sponsorship and an opportunity to memorialize or honor those Rotarians who served in the past from your company. So I do want to take just one business item. Trey reviewed the budget last week with you all. We need to take a minute to approve it. So just a quick review. So the total income projected for the new budget would be $109,162. The total expenses would be $112,606. So we'd be projecting a loss of $3,444. But that includes expenses for the gala. If you take all the 100-year celebration expenses out, it would be a break-even year. And we're also planning to raise some money for the gala that could offset that too. We have about $60,000 in the bank, so we're in good shape in terms of dipping into that. So any questions from the group? Trey's not here, so I mean, you can ask. I might not know, but I'd be glad to hear a question. But is there a willingness to make a motion? Thank you. Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Our budget's approved. So exciting part of the meeting, we want to induct a new member. She's an old friend. She's coming back to the club, Cheryl Magny. She was a great member before, and we're looking forward to working with her again moving forward. So now I'll ask Josh Hurd to come up and introduce and induct her.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce to you all Cheryl Magny. Cheryl is a native of Valley, Alabama, but has resided in LaGrange for the last 23 years. She has 2 children, Charmaine and Kamani, and 2 beautiful granddaughters, Marcolyn and Malaya. She graduated from LaGrange College with a bachelor's art degree in business administration with a minor in finance in May of 2002. She completed her MBA with a dual concentration in leadership and marketing at Grand Canyon University in 2007. Cheryl is currently employed with Communities and Schools of Georgia at the state office in Atlanta, Georgia. And she serves as a full-time, full-service community schools grant manager. Her past employers are the Department of Community Affairs for 2 years and the City of West Point for 10 years. Cheryl also holds a certification as a certified economic development finance professional through the National Development Council that she received in 2017. She certainly knows her way around our community. She's considered a pillar, and I would agree. And she has advocated for several programs and initiatives. She does mentoring, and she enjoys her family and friends. And Cheryl is also a dedicated member of the best sorority in town, which is the True Coweta Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And she sits on the board of United Way and Friends of the Thread. And there are many people that have inspired her during this time. And Cheryl has poured her back into her community. And today, mentoring has been her main focal point. But she doesn't hesitate to spread her knowledge and skills to help others gain personal and professional growth. Cheryl is exactly what our community and Rotary needs, and I would agree. Cheryl may not remember, but I think if I can find a good fact, and I don't know if it's factual, but she may have been the first person that taught Zumba classes in LaGrange, because she actually started that here in LaGrange, Georgia. But I want to introduce to Rotary my sorority sister, Cheryl Magby.
Thank you, John. So we have at least a couple of program slots open. We'll be doing a Zumba program. So Cheryl, we do have a packet of information for you, and there's a pin in here. Congratulations and welcome. Glad to have you back. Here is your badge. I'm going to ask Kevin to remind you of the 4-way test.
And as our club members know, we always like to take advantage of this time to remind ourselves of Rotary's basic beliefs. So we're delighted to have you back in Rotary. In Rotary, the 4-way test are the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? So welcome, glad to have you back.
Thank you. Congratulations. So we have just a couple of minutes for Happy Dollars. Are there any Happy Dollars to bring forward? Henry.
Yeah, just want to share that I completed my 10th year with Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, and now have become the deputy director for the organization. So I'll be working. I get to stay home here, but do more up and down the whole Chattahoochee River.
Congratulations. That's my meeting. Good news start the meeting. Molly?
Well, I want to welcome all our guests. We've just got a room full today, and it is wonderful. And I want to recognize a special guest that came with us, Dr. Christiane Price, and she also is trying to help me speak a little French. So if you hear me say merci beaucoup, I'm just because of Chris. But a lot of you probably know Chris, but for those who don't, her husband, Bill, was actually a Rotary member for, I think about a quarter of a century. I know he was involved. I wish I knew all the programs he was involved in, because I know it was a lot. But I just wanted to let everyone know about a little bit more about Dr. Chris, and that her husband was really just a phenomenal member here of Rotary. So, but welcome to all our guests.
Thank you. Take a second. I want to put a dollar in. Oh, yeah. I'm not that cheap. Teasing. So the program that I wanted to lift up and bring to you all's attention really falls in line with our passion for literacy as a club, and it's a program that's making a difference in the lives of kids in our community. They need our help. So Read, Learn, Grow is a program, is a partnership between Get Troop Reading, Kim Myers, and the Troop County Schools, and it focuses on children who are behind in reading. And one of the things you hear about is third grade reading scores and how it's a predictor for dropout rates and incarceration, all those negative consequences. This is a program that helps kids catch up. And one of the things Brian will tell you is that so many of our children in the community aren't ready when they come to kindergarten. They don't know their letters and numbers. So this is a first grade program. It's 1 hour a week. Or you could split a class with somebody and do 2 hours a month. That's what I did last year. Kim will train you. You come in and read for 30 minutes and play some games with the kids. I can tell you, I did it last year. It's one of the most rewarding things I've done. And again, it is helping to change the trajectory of first graders and change their lives forever. So how many volunteers do you need?
We need 140 volunteers this year. This is the third year that the program has been face-to-face. It started two years ago with 2 elementary. Last year, 3 or 4 elementary schools. And this year, we're excited it's going to be 8 elementary schools in the school system. So with that growth comes the need for more volunteers, as Chris said, it's very rewarding. And as you said, first grade, we target first grade, but we're trying to catch the kids before they walk. Kindergarten, first grade is such an important time period. They go from kindergarten where they have 2 adults, but they're paraprofessional, to a first grade classroom with 1 teacher. So you're really there to help that teacher anyway during that whole time. Nicole Kennedy is the lead on this in the school system, and the trainings, we have 4 training days coming up. If you can't make a training day, they're on the flyer. We do have a virtual version of this. You can just let me know. Take one of the days and we'll work with you. A lot of people ask, we do try to meet your schedule, so you are able to say, this is the time available and available these days. And so Nicole does a great job trying to coordinate with the volunteers to make it work for everybody.
Thank you, Kim.
I want to reiterate about that program and challenge, especially the management group. I did this last year, and it did so much. And the one thing we got to recognize, a lot of these kids that struggle, living in single mom, they don't understand life. And so last year, I think Tripp and I and 1 or 2 other guys did, and really need to step into this and help come to the school. And he wasn't last. Don't be out here on birthday. Don't be back.
So let's shift our program. Really excited to have Whit back with us today. Really enjoyed your music program. Blown away that you ended with the Radiohead song. So I'm loved it. But excited to have you back today to share a program on environmental photography. I'd like to ask Ken Miles to make an introduction.
Y'all know Whit, so real quick, he's been on the grant since '76. Ran a financial planning practice here. Been a Rotarian for 112 years tomorrow. He's a world traveler. Talked about that some. He's an author, photographer, which we're going to see, a musician and a dancer. So, ladies and gentlemen, the man that taught Elvis how to gyrate, Mississippi Delta, Jay Woodbury.
You forgot to tell you, I'm a track star. How fast do you think I can run? And the photo credit of the random tourist handed up some camera, somebody she took. So I want to talk about our flight. Are we an endangered species? We may be. I'm going to try to illustrate some of the problems we got with photography. And let's get started here. I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, as Ken said, and it's a swamp that was dried out. They built a levee running from Memphis all the way down 200 miles to Vicksburg. All of a sudden, this sea of trees, which were 10, 12 feet wide, 1,000 years old, was in peril. We criticized other people for cutting down trees in the forest. We decimated this whole forest just so that the cotton could be grown there. And these trees were huge. That's a remnant right there. They just hauled it off to Memphis. Memphis became the hardwood capital of the world, and the Mississippi Delta became the cotton capital. When I was born in 1941, 6 months before World War II, it was all mules and manpower. There wasn't a single piece of equipment, mechanized equipment on the farm. but there were a few places left after they dried it out. That land was covered with silt that washed out in 29 states and Canada. And the topsoil was about 30 feet deep. And there's still some remnants of water in this old riverbed where it used to run. It meandered a lot and left these cypress biomes there. So I would go stand on the bridge for hours. We didn't have a TV back then. I stand there and watch the wildlife in the water. You could see maybe 3 feet in that water. And there were snapping turtles, you know, about this big, alligator snapping turtles, soft shell turtles this big, alligator gars 6, 7 feet long. You just stand there and watch it all going on all the way. My cousin came from California and I was taking him out frog gigging at night. And we had a live gig. They would clamp on it and they were live. We put them in orange sacks that you get from the grocery store. We had a boatload of them orange sacks. What we didn't realize was they dissolved in water. Pretty soon we had a boatload of live bullfrog hopping. So we recaptured as many as we could, took them to my aunt. She was gonna fry the frog legs for us. She was over there preparing the frogs and she was cutting the tendon out of the leg. She said, if you didn't do that, the legs without a frog on them would actually jump out of the frying pan with that tendon. And so my cousin watching me, he said, and that tendon was called a leader. And my cousin said, what are you doing, Aunt? He said, I'm taking the leaders out so they won't jump out of the pan. And he says, how do you know which frogs are the leaders? We're gonna come back to that frog in a minute. My daddy was the primary provider of protein for a family of 9 kids. And growing up, there's our house. He's standing in the driveway. Back behind him is this levee, a 40-foot high dam that ran 200 miles to keep the river at bay. And over on the other side were woods. So he had access to all these woods. He would go over there and he was really generous with his lead. He overkilled a lot. And so I thought maybe I ought to be like him and his college roommate, saying he killed a whole flock of crows. Why kill one? We can kill all of them. How did he kill them? So Daddy, I thought I needed to be a killer. And I got my BB gun and went and shot a wren when I was 5 years old. He should have said, like Atticus Finch, it's a sin to kill a wren. But he didn't. He praised me and he took me out hunting all over again. And one day when I was about 10 years old, we were hunting geese over the lake in the woods. And we had these decoy, paper mache decoys sitting up. A lot came in and landed geese, scattered geese. And I started blasting away with 20 gauge. And I killed 1 goose and 3 decoys. And all the geese flew away except the one I killed and its mate. They said, shoot that one. I said, no, I'm not gonna shoot that one. It was desperately trying to get its mate up off the water and it wouldn't leave. Finally, we just had to run it off. And it kind of made me wonder, I think I just broke up a family. And so later on in life, I traded in all my guns, my Canon, so to speak, for a Canon camera. And one of the things I wanted to do was preserve the way of life because it was all mules and manpower when I was growing up. So I started taking pictures of the Delta. And when I moved to Georgia, I was just so amazed that there were clear streams and rocks. We had no rocks in the Delta except what the Indians had brought. And all the Indians that left, they left their flint rocks in the Indian mounds. And most of the Indian mounds are just plowed over to plant cotton, desecrated. So joined the Georgia Nature Photographers Association, and we started a chapter in Hamilton. And there's more than 900 photographers in Georgia, the 8 chapters. And this one serves LaGrange, Columbus, and Auburn. And we meet monthly and try to show pictures that we've taken and share techniques and with other purposes to get involved with ecological projects. But these animals, this great white egret, they mate for life. They stick together, so to speak. And here's one bringing a stick to the mate on the nest. Here's great blue heron, they're sticking together. Here's a wood stork carrying a wood stalk and a roseate spoonbill carrying a stick. So it's in the swamps in Florida. Here they are building their nest. So these are birds that mate for life. And this is the sandhill crane. Georgia in Tennessee, north of Chattanooga, Tennessee River. There's a place called the Hiwassee Wildlife Preserve. In January, December each year, 20,000 sandhill cranes come through and stop over there on the way south. You can get out on a boat and see them. They're amazing. They found a skull out west. It's 1,000,000-something years old, and it's had virtually unchanged from today's sandhill crane. So they're survivors. Unfortunately, well, there's a mating dance. These are the two that hadn't mated yet. Unfortunately, I saw across the river one day, there's a sea of gray sandhill cranes, and then there was a white speck there, and I took a picture of it to see what it was. The zoom in, and it was a whooping crane. At one time, when I was born, there were only 16 left in the world, and preservationists gathered up 10 eggs, and now there are 536 of them, and some of them in the wild. And I suspect this one had its mate killed. Hunters are allowed to kill the sandhill cranes. They call it the sirloin from the sky. And somebody probably killed this guy's mate, and he had to find some buddies to flock to. There are a lot of these great white pelicans there that come in groves. This is a snowy egret down in Florida. They were almost all exterminated by hunters because women liked all these feathers here, and they wanted them in their hats. Same with the great white egret. When they're mating, they have these feathers. And two women, bless the women, they got together and stopped the killing and formed a group that later became the Audubon National Society. And so they're now protected coming back. All the buffalo were gone when I was a kid. There was a highway through Mississippi called Natchez Trace. It was an old buffalo trail. And there were none left. Of course, there were none left anywhere except maybe Yellowstone Park. There were about 500 there. Today, there are 31,000 buffaloes, including about 10,000 of woodland buffalo and the plains buffalo. And out of that 500 in Yellowstone, there are now 5,000 in Yellowstone. And they have sent pairs, breeding pairs out all over the West, and they've grown the herd back. But there were millions of them. The reason we killed them, I think, is to get rid of the Indians, but deprive them of their food source. So we're a terrible animals. Here are bears. There were black bears when I came along. They had been plentiful. I found an ancestral journey up in Tennessee, an ancestor wrote, we killed 20 black bears last year, and we don't know where they are now. Well, duh. They faded into oblivion. And my grandfather brought 2 bears. He bought 2 bears from out west. He took the bell tower poles and built a fence around it, put the bears up on the farm bell tower. And the guy was feeding them through the fence. And one day he was going to show off, and he opened the gate to feed them. Show him he could feed them. Bear knocked him on his butt. And the Memphis Sioux got 2 black bears. There were no mountain lions. They're gradually coming back in places. There had even been some in Troup County. One was killed a while back. And there's some black ones here, the black mulatto, melon phase of black. There are no wolves left in Mississippi. They reintroduced wolves back into Yellowstone to keep the elk from destroying the environment. They keep the elk from moving. There were no elk left. they were all over the place at one time. My granddaddy, being the ecologist, he got 3 elk from out west. And he had the idea of starting a herd like this one in Montana. He had a bull and 2 does. And what would happen, it was majestic to see that out in the pasture when I was 6, 7 years old. And they kept jumping over the fence and running off. And my uncle had to saddle up his horse and go round them up. One day he was a little too slow. We don't know what happened. They have restocked the elk in the Great Smoky Mountains and in North Carolina. So they're trying to get back to what. I'm glad my granddaddy didn't get any grizzly bears because my uncle probably would not have ran it in us. There were a lot of things that survived that great extinction event. By the way, we're going through another major extinction event now. Species are dying off at an alarming rate. Bobcats survive because they're so reclusive and they're hard to spot. Foxes survived. There were no deer, 0 deer when I was growing up, none. We were coming back from a duck hunting trip through the woods, and I told Daddy to stop the Jeep. I said, I think there's a mule right there in the woods, and we backed up, and it wasn't a mule, it was a deer with magnificent horns. And so pretty soon they began to multiply, and pretty soon the game warden put them in the spotlight, said, you have to kill 100 deer here, but there are just too many. There were no predators to keep in check. And so I came home from college and Daddy said, we've only killed 80. You want to get, you want to go and kill 20? Went over the wood, I killed 5 deer with 6 bullets. The one that I missed ran off, it was jumping over a log, maybe 50 yards away, and I just fired a shot and dropped. Well, where I couldn't find a bullet hole, I hit it right in the eye. And I swear to God that happened. And if you hear anybody saying that he has to have an AK-47 for hunting, you don't need an AK-47. You probably need to kill people, which is what you're doing. The coyotes came back to fill the void left by the absent predators. I don't know if they came back. They probably came in the west. And these are probably hybrid coyotes. They probably made them dog or something because they don't look like the little coyotes that are out west. And that's Cades Cove, that's Yellowstone. We did get mechanization finally, and then crop dusters came along, putting poison down on the fields. And it wasn't long before all that poison ran off in that bayou where I stood when I was a kid watching all this game, and everything died there. And you can't see a sight like that there anymore, but I saw this creature come up from the depths at Callaway Gardens. That's a soft-shelled turtle, and his shell must be 3 feet long from stem to stern, because that little turtle on top is about 1 foot long. And I looked it up on Google, and if it's 3 feet long, it's a world record, soft-shelled turtle. But I was glad to see that they are surviving in nooks and crannies. All the buzzards died because of DDT. My daddy just sprayed it all over the yard to get rid of the insects. And it worked its way into the food chain, and it softened the egg shells where they couldn't hatch. So all the birds were dying, all the crows disappeared. You could always go and see a flock of crows before that. All the ospreys were gone. Now at West Point Lake, there are about 20 nesting boxes on poles out in the lake, and each one has couples there rearing new ospreys. And you have to get in the boat to get up and see them close, but they're around. All the eagles were killed off. Back then, any hawk was a chicken hawk. You had to kill it, and they kill the eagle in the process. So I never knew. Now they're back. We've got several mating pairs on West Point Lake, and a lot of the stock was brought down from Alaska transplanted all around the country. They're coming back. So it's a magnificent bird. It's a national symbol. A lot of people thought they were saving. This guy, Tom Turkey, never disappeared because my daddy loved hunting and he preserved it. This picture appeared in the New York Times of him with a turkey. He and his brothers got together and along with my granddaddy, and they put up postage signs all over the woods. And the people in the county got all upset. We can't go in your woods anymore and hunt. Nope. And Daddy is credited with saving the turkey in that part of Mississippi from extinction. Now they've been repopulated. They've been brought back into Troup County. You go up to Cades Cove and the Smokies and see them in their full mating strut. It's really amazing to see that. I put this picture in there. That's a pileated woodpecker. It's not threatened, but it reminds us of the ivory-billed woodpecker, which had an ivory-colored bill. They're all extinct, except the guy in Arkansas claims he's seen one. He keeps going back trying to get a picture and prove it, and I hope he's right. But we're extincting a lot of species. No problem with the doves, but that reminds us of the passenger pigeon. At one time, they were so numerous, it took days for a flock to fly over, and the land just grew dark when they were flying over. Hunters would just shoot up in the sky, and they would rain dead and wounded pigeons. They put them in barrels and sell them to restaurants. We'll never run out of these. The last one died in the Cincinnati Zoo in 1920s. So these are puffins on an island off the coast of Canada, and they're threatened because the heat of the ocean. In Florida recently, they found a reading of over 100 degrees of the ocean surface water. What happens? They're on a downhill slide because the fish they feed on, and they go down and catch a whole beak full of it at one time. The fish are retreating deeper and deeper to be in the cooler waters, and they can't dive as deep as they are sometimes. So their chicks are dying off some years. This is a success story. This is the California condor. This is the 1,000th one that's hatched since they saved that condor from extinction. They had 20 of them in captivity, and they started breeding them and released them into the wild. There are about 300 in the wild. He was hatched in the wild. He's 6 months old, got a 9-foot wingspan. I saw him up on the cliff in Zion Canyon. He could fly, he could fly out of the canyon. His parents would fly 200 or 300 miles, find carrion, bring him food. Unfortunately, a lot of the carrion was hunter kills left there was lead, and a lot of them died out. But there's about 300 in the wild now, sprinkled off the west. And so he's there saying, I'm the king of the world. Hope he survives. 6 months old, 9-foot wingspan. So we got to get our ducks in a row, folks. We got to get organized and start straightening out and flying right. Got to save the plants, because we eat a lot of plants. And if it starts dying, Armageddon's just around the corner. God forbid. This is a Cahaba lily. It's a rare lily. You can find it on the Shoal Creek, Black Shoals Creek near West Point. This fella has preserved this batch of lilies there, and he opens his land to start in the spring to go and take pictures. So, it's a beautiful lily. It was almost extinct. This is the end. That's the 3-hour process of a total eclipse. You had to go up to North Georgia to see the total eclipse. It took 3 hours. You have to put a lens over your camera to keep from frying it. It's like a welder's lens. All you can see is this red dot. Otherwise, you'd be blinded if you looked at it. And gradually, the moon eats away at the sun. And for 3 minutes, it goes dark, and you get this ring up in the sky. And you take that big, heavy lens off the camera and take a picture of it. Gotta be quick. I forgot to do it almost. I said, why my camera go dark? And it's a mystical experience. You're standing there and all of a sudden the clouds dissipate. We thought we weren't gonna see it because the clouds had disappeared. It got dark, it got cold. And there were lights dancing all around us because sunlight goes around it when it comes down on Earth. Well, there's this big circle where it was all dark, and that circle moves across the country. They've taken jet planes, just following all the way across the country, the big black dot going over. So if we can just keep it cool more often, be better. We are destroying the environment. We almost destroyed the ozone layer, and hopefully it's coming back. But if we don't have that protective film around Earth, we're all going to fry. It's going to look like Mars eventually. This is the Milky Way taking over in Alabama in a dark area, but you can see the light pollution from over like in the distance. There's a meteor going through the Milky Way, and we think those stars are small. They look back at us, we're pretty small. If they're close enough, all they see is this blue dot. And Carl Sagan put it this way: preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. If we think we're gonna get rescued by going to Mars, we got another thought coming. We gotta preserve what we got. One question, have we got a snowball's chance? I don't know. Yoda put it this way: do or do not. There's no try. So we need to get busy. We need to take the blinders off. We need to take a hint from nature. It's too hot. That's what they're telling us. Here is a tropical butterfly on a plant blooming in December in Harris County. I've only seen that butterfly in the wild in the Caribbean. Things are coming up north to get away from the heat. And eventually it's not going to be any north because all the ice is melting in the Arctic. The permafrost is melting and trees are just sinking down in the ground. And I don't know. We don't know. There is no out. We can't get out of it. It's worldwide. So the oil companies were saying everything's okay, keep buying our product. And yet their internal memos show they knew it's a problem and they weren't doing anything about it. They weren't telling the public. And Sir Walter Scott put it this way: oh, on a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. Kurt Vonnegut said it this way: we're terrible animals. I think Earth's immune system is trying to get rid of us. During the pandemic, for a while, there were no cars moving in cities, and all of a sudden the air cleared up. It tells us we need to get rid of fossil fuels. We think we own the Earth, but we don't. We're just a part of it. Mushrooms, however, make Earth. And there's a guy out west, he's grinding up mushrooms and putting them in a solution and spraying them on a brush pile before they catch fire, and trying to get the mushroom to turn it back into loam. And the clearest way to the universe is through a forest wilderness, said John Muir. This is the mushrooms have filaments underground for miles. And when we destroy a forest, we're destroying a whole network of things that talk to each other. Scientists say the trees, through their roots and the filaments of mushrooms, can talk to each other. There's a mother tree that stopped taking up water to give more to the little trees. Believe it or not, I don't know, but I do believe this. The aspen out west is, when you see a grove of aspen, you're just seeing one organism, one entity. Every tree is connected. They're all one tree growing. They're different trees growing the same root system. And the largest thing on earth that they know of that's alive is a grove of aspen out in Colorado. And they had to put a fence around it to keep animals from destroying it. Back to the bullfrog. When they put all that poison out there, little toads would catch them and they would have limbs missing, or they would have extra limbs, or they have limbs growing out of them. All that poison. And we wonder, what's happened to the frogs? They're telling us something. This, if you put a frog in hot water, boiling water, he'll jump out. But if you put him in cold water, he gradually turn up the heat. You can boil him alive. And that's what's happening. We need to take the leaders out like man. We need to be leaders. We need to teach our children and grandchildren about the value of forests and wilderness. Chief Seattle, a wise Indian, said this: we do not inherit earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our grandchildren. And we don't need to lead our grandchildren astray. And Wallace said that Henry David Thoreau is the preservation of the world. These are some scenes from different national parks. We save the little pockets of the earth, of the ecosystem. We need to save more, flatten more. So if you want to do something, go plant a tree. Better yet, put solar panels up, drive an electric car. Scary, scary flight. Apology if Vincent Van Gogh. Scary, scary night. Starry, starry night, rather. We have met the enemy. He is us. That's what Pogo Possum, the cartoon character of the Okefenokee Swamp, said. And time it now. There are only 3,900 tigers left in the wild, 5,000 of them in captivity. This is a captive one in Montana in a wild setting. Mahatma Gandhi said this: what we're doing in the forest of the world, but a mere reflection of what we're doing to ourselves. I'm going to cut to the chase here. I went to a museum in France to see these relics from a prehistoric cave. And I was amazed at the artistry these prehistoric people had. That little ivory carving was on the cover of National Geographic. But it reminded me what James Goodall said. Here we are, the most clever species ever to have lived. So how do we destroy the only planet that we have? So there ended the sermon. Thank you.
Some photos and certainly you're always interesting. Appreciate all you've given to the club over the years. So in honor of you speaking today, we'll be making a donation in your honor to Polio Plus, which is our initiative to eradicate polio worldwide. Couple of program announcements moving forward, just to give you an idea. Next week, we'll have Shawanda Cobb, the Commissioner of the Department of Juvenile Justice. After that, August 16th, we'll have Justice Carla Wong McMillan from Georgia Supreme Court. August 23rd is John Mahaffey, a new member and the new headmaster at LaGrange Academy. And then closing out the month will be Robert Nobles, Chief Investment Officer for Synovus. Thank you all for making the Rotary a priority today. We're adjourned. That was. I'll be better. I'll be better.